Grand Rising, and welcome to Conversations on the Spiritual Journey with Luz Castro. Grand Rising, Luz.
Hi, Raan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So I've known Luz for 3 or 4 years now, maybe longer, and we recently got back in contact, and I thought it would be a great thing to have this conversation. Before we start, I'm gonna quickly read through Luz's bio. As a child, I went through different religions, from Catholicism, evangelical Mormonism, and dabbled in the Baha'i faith. I broke away from religion when I was a teenager, around 18 years of age, but it was always something on my mind. I felt conflicted by the doctrine I was taught growing up and what my intuition and my heart felt. I went on an inner search for the true religion and the true nature of God. Had a breakthrough when attending Brahma Kumaris meditation courses while at uni. Years later, read Conversation with God book, Dolores Cannon, Wayne Dyer. Dark night of the soul after a difficult breakup, which led to an inner journey through the practice of Zen Buddhism, Thich Nhat Hanh. Mindfulness meditation led to a growing interest in spirituality. This soon after led to a rupture in the fashion industry, a change of career. Started looking more for a more meaningful career, went on to work with vulnerable young people in London and studied holistic counseling and hypnotherapy. Currently, I'm working at a mental health organization as a senior well-being advisor and have my own holistic counseling and hypnotherapist practice. I am mainly interested in helping clients reconciliating their past with their present, healing and clearing from difficult past experiences, explore beliefs, what may be holding them back, and replace them with new ones, while expanding their awareness to the beauty of life, getting them into the flow, feeling connected with themselves, the universe, the world, and everything in it. Thank you for that, Luz.
Thanks,
You
Raan.
spoke about you broke away from religion when you was a teenager. What exactly happened?
So I can say the main transition was when my dad passed away. But even before that, and I think, well, when my dad passed away, I was about 14. And that's when I really started questioning things even more. But even before that, to be honest, at the time I was a Mormon. I was baptized with my dad. He was the one who kind of decided he was going to get baptized. So therefore, I should be baptized as well with him. We had a really good relationship with my dad. So, you know, I kind of went along with whatever he said at the time. So we were baptized. And then he passed away about 4 years later. But anyway, when he passed away, he had already left the religion, Mormons, but I kind of carry on attending the church, going to the church, participating. However, when he passed away, I start questioning things even more. And the reason why I start questioning things is that because at the time of my dad passing away, he had left the religion and he went back to smoking. He was a smoker before. He went back to smoking, which is one of the things that you as a Mormon, you are not really allowed to do. And also my dad, he did struggle with drugs throughout his life. And that's actually one of the reasons why he passed away. He was struggling with drugs, he passed away. So for me, it was really difficult to accept that my dad, even though he had these issues with drugs, he was a good dad and he was a very loving person. So I really struggled to accept that you will not be going to the heaven like religion tells you normally. You know, if you're a good person, if you do this and that, if you follow these steps, if you follow the commandments, then you go to heaven and you are going to have a blissful life in heaven, eternity. But if you're not, then you are going to be punished for eternity and you're going to hell. So I found it really hard to believe that was true, and to believe that God, that is supposed to be all almighty and supposed to be the canon for kindness, compassion, forgiveness, that it was not going to be able to forgive my dad. And if that I am human and I was his daughter, and I really had and I still have unconditional love for him, I could not imagine me turning him away from the doors of heaven. So I found it really hard to believe that God, again, someone that, you know, entity that is not human, not really being able to forgive someone for that. So that's when I start to think, you know, that doesn't really make sense. And all that we're learning in church about compassion and forgiveness, it seems that there is a sort of a sort of a paradox, really, isn't it? So that's the time when I start questioning things, and I kind of start going away from religion and from the church. But it took me at least 3 years to actually really be able to just break out any ties I have. And that's because, you know, when you are in a religion like that, you really feel quite guilty, and you feel that that's the only option. You feel that that's the only path to have a happy life. And you also, in a way, some fear is installed on you as well, because you have fear that if you don't do certain things, then God, Jesus, is not going to be on your side. You're not going to be protected, and that you're going to be on your own. So I already felt on my own. My dad passed away at a time. My mom was not really in the picture, so, you know, it was really hard. Also being in a community, somehow I felt protected there as well. So it was really hard to break away and to just, for me, was kind of going on my own without God turning the back to me, the community turning the back to me, and me then in the end going to hell. That was the idea I had. But I guess the more I kind of grew up and the more I start reading other things, then I was able to break away and to actually look for my own truth and for what made sense to me.
So what did you start reading, or were you introduced to different teachers or books?
So to start, to be honest, I actually start by going to other religions and to dabble into different religions, because for me, in my mindset at the time, there was no other way to grow spiritually. So I always had the association of personal growth and spirituality with religion. So I started going to different religions, learning a little bit more, but all of them, even though they would, it would seem that the package would be different, but then the contents of it for me would be pretty much the same thing, the same sort of dogmas. So I got to a point where I just kind of stopped looking for it, to be honest. And then I just carry on with my life. And then I think it took maybe at least another about between 8 to 10 years for me to start looking into these things again. When I started looking into these things again was actually during a quite difficult relationship. And the relationship, I think relationships are really great because they really bring those things. Relationships have got the capacity of transformation because they really make you look inwards, especially the difficult relationships, make you really look inwards and see what things are there that needs to be healed. So that relationship forced me to do that. And then as I did that, as I looked into myself, then you have got the tendency to also look outside you for cues and for help, maybe from people that have been through the same, or just trying to understand a little bit more. So that's when I then start reading looking more into personal development, teachers like Wayne Dyer, Dolores Cannon, and trying to make a bit more sense of everything. And that was pretty much the process and how things went.
What's for you? What's the difference between spirituality and religion, or is
For
there?
me, that's a good question. So when you are, I think sometimes that there are things that are very similar. So, and it does depend on the religion, but when you are in a religion, a part of a religion, you do have the opportunity to look within yourself, but I think you are quite limited. The way you look inwards, the way you look into yourself, because there are parts of you that you often will just not look into it, and you will suppress because it's installed on you the fear that you're not supposed to feel this way, or you're not supposed to think this way. And if you do, you are evil. You're an evil person. And if you do, you are going to end in hell, or God is not going to be happy with you. So that's one of the sides of the religion, that even though it does lead you to an inner journey, but then in a way is quite limiting, because then you are scared of looking into your shadow, into your aspects that perhaps are not so positive, but they do need to be looked into, and they do need to be accepted in order for you to transform. So you end up suppressing those aspects of yourself. In spirituality, which I enjoy the most, is that you look into you as a spirit, but also as God is within you. So you don't really need a mediator to have that relationship with God. So you can actually have that relationship with God, or when I say God, I am talking about the creator, it's quite hard to define, actually. I think this is the first time I'm defining what God is for me, but for me, I would say the creator, sorry, I don't think I can actually find a word that would define exactly what it means to me, but it's just that divinity that is within every single one of us and within every single thing, is a sort of a source energy. I think probably that would be the best word I can use, is a source energy. So life source energy. So that's what spirituality is for me. It's about connecting with that life source energy that is also within you. And when you find that, you kind of you feel that you are more powerful, and you feel also not only that you are more powerful, but you also start to feel that you matter and that you are important, and that you don't need anyone else. You don't need a physical space to connect with God, and you don't need a mediator such as priest or whatever it is, to a monk or whatever it is, to communicate with God. You can actually communicate yourself directly, and you can access that divine within you as you go inwards. You can be by doing meditation, going for a walk, connecting with nature, or just doing things that really truly makes you happy. So that's what spirituality is for me. And then also to be able to see also yourself, see those aspects of yourself that can be quite damaging for yourself and for others, and be able to be aware of them, but also being quite kind to them, not trying to suppress, but trying to be accepting of it, and try to replace those aspects by cultivating more your positive aspects. I hope that I answer your question. I kind of forgot what you asked me. But yeah, spirituality and religion.
Yes, you answered it.
Hmm.
You mentioned the shadow. Can you go into that? Please, yes.
Yes, so shadow aspects is not thing like woo-woo. A lot of people think, oh, a shadow, you know what she's talking about. I don't have a shadow in me. Well, it's not really that. When I talk about shadow, as actually mainly to do with traumas we go through in life. It has to do as well with negative behaviors or behaviors that are not helpful for us and for the people as well. And that we learn that as we grow up. We learn that through our caregivers or through experiences that we go through in life. So, for example, let me just give you an example. So, for example, if I am bullied at school for a specific characteristic that I have, let's say someone thinks that I talk too much, and the teacher tells me, you know, I talk too much, and she makes fun of me because I talk too much or dismisses me, then I might create a belief that what I say doesn't matter. People don't want to hear what I have to say. And I create a belief as well that my opinion doesn't matter and that I have to talk less to be accepted. So, and as I go through life, I might even get really upset at someone that then goes and talks a lot because I think, and that was installing me that that's not a good thing. So I start to also shame other people that are doing that because in my subconscious mind, I see it as a negative trait. So that could be one of shadow aspect, for example, or it could be that, you know, I become a really shy person and I'm not really able to express myself and I become really quiet. So that's also could be also a shadow aspect. So it could go in different ways. But a shadow aspect is something that stops you from being you, and something that it creates a certain uncomfortable feeling within yourself. And the best way for you to get in touch with those shadow aspects of yourself is to observe what triggers you, what makes you upset, what is it in other people that you find it really annoying, or things that you cannot deal. So that's when is opportunity. You can see that as opportunity to look, oh, why is it that I get triggered by so and so when they do this and that? And do I have a reason to get triggered? And what is it in me, within me, that perhaps it might be, could be a trauma, it could be just some hurt, some pain that I have not dealt with in the past, that I have not processed, and that creates a shadow within you because you have not processed that. Does it make sense?
Yes. So when you were looking at shadow areas within yourself, did you have major breakthroughs of things that maybe you had forgotten, but realizing that had affected you?
Yes, totally. I did, and that really literally happened when I had that relationship. We were not even together for that long. It was maybe 2 years, but it was really intense, and we were quite toxic to each other. And you know, I will never see myself as a toxic person. And for me, he was a toxic one, and you know, I was pointing fingers and everything. And it took me a while to realize, oh my God, you know, to actually have the understanding that I was also toxic. And the reason why I was toxic was because I had all this stuff that I had not dealt with before. And and also when that happened, because I would say that in a more sort of spiritual, talking about spirituality in a spiritual term, it was my twin flame. I don't know if you are, if you ever heard about twin flames and soulmates, but a twin flame, very brief summary. A twin flame is someone, it doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic relationship. It could be any kind of relationship, but it's just someone that you have got a lot of affinity. You feel that you have known that person for a long time, quite similar to perhaps the soulmate. But that person, for some reason, your relationship is really intense and things get really accelerated really fast in a way that that person has got the capacity to trigger your weakest points and to bring all the stuff up that it needs to be brought up, past hurt, past trauma. So it brings everything up and everything is out in the open. It's like fire, it just burns everything. And so in that case, so yes, so that's what made me look into it. And I think I kind of lost myself. So your question was, what made me look into it, wasn't it?
The shadow, yes. What happened?
Yes.
What breakthroughs happened?
So kind of, yes. So that's what happened, when I realized that, why am I doing these things that are so toxic? Why am I reacting in that way? And why am I attracting that kind of relationship as well? Why is that happening? And then also because that person had the capability of also pointing out the shadow's aspect in myself. He could see clearly what was wrong with me, but he could not see what was wrong with him. But he could see what was wrong with me, and I could see what was wrong with him. So it kind of was both ways. And when that person was kind of, I would say, throwing daggers at me, that's what it felt sometimes at the time. I was like, and then I would get quite shocked. How dare him saying that I am this person or I'm doing this? That's not true, because obviously I don't want to look into it. But then he stays there in your mind, isn't he? It's like a seed, and he stays there. And then little by little, as you grow and as you learn new things, you kind of start looking into different layers of that specific issue. And then, yes, that was the realization of the pains and traumas that I've been through growing up. And that at the time, especially when you are a child, sometimes you don't, you cannot process these things, and you don't see that. And sometimes it takes you a while to understand that actually that was a trauma. Sometimes you don't even see that as a negative, you just see it as part of life. You just normalize things, because I think that's the way for us to deal with it, and it's just easy for us to move on and to carry on. And I was someone that I would never really have a deep conversation. I was quite superficial as well, because again, I was afraid to get in touch with my emotions. And that's because, that served me a lot. That served me when I was a child, not to look into my emotions. That was kind of a survival way. That was a survival tool for me, not to look into my emotions, just keep going, move on, keep going. So they get to a point where you need to, otherwise you cannot move forward anymore. You just go backwards. So that was happened, and realizing, I don't think it was kind of forgetting what happened, but it was more realizing that those things that happened caused me so much harm and hurt. They had not been forgotten, but it was just kind of seeing things in a different way, from a different perspective.
As well as personal trauma, is there also a generational trauma that can be passed down, parents, grandparents, that lies within us, that also may need to be looked at?
Oh yes, totally. And after I start doing that inner work, and then obviously normally our issues, more often than not, they stem from family issues, isn't it? And from your childhood, from your younger years. So then once I start looking into that, and also the key point here as well is, you know, looking into it with compassion and not pointing fingers at other people. And I think also being a mindfulness and meditation practitioner helped me to kind of remain kind to myself, and kind to those aspects, and kind to things that happened in the past. So not pointing fingers at people, but just really understanding what people have been through and the reason why they did certain things. And you know, I do love my family, and I know that, you know, things that happen, and I'm not saying like specific things. Some things they just didn't have control. You don't have control, you know, so much going on in your life, and work, you have to work, paying bills. Sometimes people just don't really have time to really sit down and think about their relationships or about themselves. They are in constant survival mode, and everything else gets forgotten. Everything else is put on in the background as less important. So yes, understanding, I start looking into family behaviors that were hurtful at times, and realizing that, you know, they are not doing that because they in a way they're unconscious. They are not even aware that their actions are, it's hurting other people. And because again, they are in an automatic mode. You learn your behaviors normally are learned. Your personality as well is a construct of everything that you've been fed of as you're growing up, experiences, and also by observing your caregivers' own habits and ways of dealing with things. So, and then you go on an automatic pilot. If you never get the time to actually think if this is harmful or not, or if it's even beneficial for you, you just carry on going on an automatic pilot. So that's what I realized as well with my family, and realizing, I mean, not all my family, but certain members of family, and realizing that the reason why they're doing that is because you just carry on, you know, that's what they've been taught. That's how they think that dealing with things should be done. And that's the way they think that raising a child is like. And they just don't know anything better. And they never even thought that there is something else better. So yes, definitely. And I think as well that there is a genes as well, of course, things that been passed down in genes, not just by our behaviors, but also in our genes that can be activated or deactivated. So yes, definitely there is a sort of a, and I do challenge everyone to really look into your family history, and if there is a specific problem that you've got in your life, either in relationships or work, to actually go through your family. You don't even need to go that far down the line. You can go to the past 2 or 3 generations and just see if it's a relationship problem. You can just see what was their relationships like, or if it's something related with your profession or work, or maybe you have got an addiction. So just go down the line, and more often than not, you will see that there is a sort of a repetition of certain issues and repetition of certain behaviors, which will lead to the same kind of outcomes.
This looking into trauma, did this lead to challenging conversations with friends and family?
That's a good question. With friends, normally I will bring these kind of subjects to friends that they are kind of already familiarized with these kind of things. It's quite rare when I will bring a subject, unless someone is open, of course, is open to that kind of conversation. But I can, now that you're saying that, I can realize perhaps some of the friends that have known me in the past, in my younger years, until I was maybe 25, and they feel that now I'm a totally different person. I don't see that. I don't see that, but they obviously do see that. But that's just because I have always been this the person I am now, but I was just not expressing it, and maybe now I'm expressing more. And also then realizing that, you know, my life was actually not easy growing up. I really had difficult life growing up, but then being quite shocked because, you know, at the time I was always a bubbly person. I was always very proactive with things. I was shy until a quite young age, but then from the 14, since I turned 14, I was quite outgoing and open and everything. So no one ever suspected that, you know, there was a lot going on. So in that sense, yes, they were quite surprised realizing that, and also surprised why I didn't talk about these things. Why, when they thought, oh, I thought we were friends, and then realizing, you know, there was a lot going on and we never knew. With family members, not really, not really. Because, well, I tried, but then there is also so much denial sometimes, and also sometimes there is some guilt as well. That obviously you don't want to admit it, that you have done something wrong, especially when you had good intentions, which I'm sure they had good intentions, but you do not want to admit that you did something wrong, because it almost feels, I think, for them in a way, and I'm talking about specific people, that once you admit it, then that means that you were a bad person or you did something wrong, and that's kind of set in stone. But if you don't admit it, you kind of feel that, oh, actually, there was a reason why I did this, and you kind of give yourself excuse and you let yourself go, if it makes sense. You get yourself, get off the hook for that. So, and yes, it's also, you know, in the end of the day, it's not my goal to change anyone, and I might give my perspective, but if the person is not in that point where they are really ready to look into their shadows, then they aren't. But obviously I can plant a seed, but then I cannot force my own perspective into other people's.
This process of looking at trauma, is this an ongoing process for you?
Yes, definitely is. Definitely is. And for example, I mean, I started this whole process maybe since 2011, so it's been a while. And then, you know, I think it's kind of layers as well, isn't it? But then also it gets to a point, and it's the same, for example, in certain therapies, like psychotherapy, where sometimes it feels that it's a work in progress and you always work in your shadow, you always work in yourself. He also has to have a time where you just feel like, okay, you know, I'm over and done with this. I'm not going to look anymore into the past, and I'm just going to carry on with my life. Because I do believe that to a certain degree, you also have to do that, because otherwise you keep on re-traumatizing yourself, going back into what happened, why it happened, and analyzing things and healing this and healing that. Sometimes I think it gets to a point where you just have to carry on, because otherwise you're going to be doing more harm than good. And I think also your mind has got a huge power. And if you do believe that, you know, you are over and done with it and you are healed, then you're going to be healed and you are already done with it. You can either go by 10 years psychotherapy and keep on working forever, or you can actually just tell to yourself, you know what? I accept it. Obviously, acceptance is one of the first things. I accept it and I let it go. It happened, but I'm going to move forward and I let it go. And you have to. It gets to the point where you just have to. But then there are also some layers, and there are also some things that sometimes, you know, it's going to keep on coming into your life, and then might trigger certain aspects of yourself that again might trigger you remembering things in the past that happened to you in the past, and where you feel that you have to go through again the same cleanse and the same forgiveness for yourself and for others process, and everything that makes you feel relieved and makes you feel good. So, you know, yeah, definitely there are things throughout our life. But then I think the more you do it, and as the years go by, the easier it is to actually deal with it and to be able to just move forward. So let's say, for instance, if something happens, something triggers a specific shallow aspect of myself. Maybe, for instance, before I would be 3 months where I'll be really, really down and feeling really awful and feeling in despair. And for now, for example, if something happens like this, it takes me a week compared to 3 months. So there is a progress. And also there is a progress of, you know, I know what do I do that isn't helpful when I get triggered. I am aware of it. I have made the decision I'm not going to do that anymore, and I'm going to approach things in a different way. And even if I want to do that, and it's almost like a compulsion. That's your first reaction. You get triggered, you want to do something, that's your first reaction. That's what is ingrained in your mind, is ingrained in your genes sometimes, and is ingrained in your body memory as well, in your physical memory. So you go and you act on it. So if you are aware that's what you do, you know straight away, you stop yourself and you do something different. And by doing something different, that's going to bring me the results I more likely would like to see. So that's what I do now these days. So it becomes easier and easier, if it makes sense.
So is it to get to the stage where there's a trigger and it's seen immediately? Is that the place
Yes.
you'd like to reach?
Yes, definitely. And it took a lot of practice, to be honest. It was not day to night. It took a lot of practice. It does take time for you to actually sit and think what are the things that you do. And also actually, first of all, becoming aware, how does it feel in your body? Because I think reactions, for example, in an argument, just a simple thing, in an argument, having an argument with someone, so I've got a family member, which I'm not going to name because in case if they watch this, but I've got a family member, but that family member really triggers me big time. I love that person. I really love that person, but we have a really difficult relationship. And so, for example, I know that there are certain things that person, and the thing is that that person, normally family members, they know exactly where to trigger, where they know where to push your how to push your buttons. They know exactly how to say what to say to get a reaction. So me being aware of that, as soon as a person says that, I can feel in my body, like, you know, my breathing and my heart rate going like, whoo. And then that's normally the time when then I would have a reaction, say something because I want to hurt the person as much as the person hurt me. And then from there just escalates, isn't it? And then it just creates even more chaos. So just being aware of, okay, I got hate. So for me, it's retrieving and actually go away from the situation. From other person might be something else, but for me, what works best is to actually go away. Either going to the bathroom, close the door, stay there for 5 minutes, try to recompose myself, get back into my own self, and think, how do I want to react to this? Do I want to react? Shall I just let go? You know, make a decision, or it could be different coping strategies, such as picking up my phone if there is no bathroom, just picking up my phone, pretend, okay, I need to call someone, or, you know, just do something that takes you out of the situation. Or it could even be counting to 5. There is a really nice technique which is called naming technique, and that's really good for someone that suffers from anxiety, for example. And it brings you as well to the present moment. It's sort of a mindfulness as well technique, where you notice 5 things in the room. You actually go and look for 5 objects, and you name those objects in your mind, and you say kettle, wardrobe, fridge, basket. You name those things in your mind, and then you look for colors: pink, yellow, red. And then you listen for sounds. You can hear the wind, you can hear a car going by. So that kind of takes you from that moment and just brings you to really, again, to be in the present moment. That's a really helpful technique as well. And just becoming aware, again, just becoming aware, what is it that happens when you get triggered, what happens in your body, what's the first sign? For me, it's like my heart going like, woo, and then I know I need to use those specific techniques. And also actually sitting down and think, how do I want to react when this happens? What do I want to do? Do I want to say something? What is the best reaction for me to have the best positive outcome for both parts? So yes, that's pretty much what I do, and it does become easier. And to be honest, it gets to a point now myself where I don't really have to think anymore on what I have to do. Almost becomes part of me and becomes automatic, because again, like the way that you used to react, a compulsive way you react to things when you get triggered in the past, it was learned because you see other people doing the same way, so you go and do the same way. Or it was the way that you found that it protects you the best, so you kept on doing. So it gets to a point, if you do break these things, and you kind of reassess in your mind, what am I going to do instead? And then you repeat, you do it over and over again, and then it becomes part of you, and then it becomes as well automatic. So now when those kind of things happen, it's becoming more and more part of myself, where I don't really have to think what step one, what step two, what step three. It just becomes natural.
So you said that you feel it in the body. Is this then the cause of a lot of the illnesses that we may have if we're carrying around a lot of these stresses and strains in the body?
Yes, definitely. And there is actually a psychologist, I think it's called Adler. I'm quite sure it's called Adler, where he actually looked into it, into childhood, adverse childhood experiences, and children that go through adverse experiences in childhood, that he actually did a study that these children, they have got more probability of getting illnesses, actually serious illnesses later on in life, because that from the stress as well, when you are in a fight or flight situation constantly, that your brain is actually releasing chemicals into your bloodstream. One of those chemicals is adrenaline, and the other one, I actually forgot what the other one is called. So one is adrenaline, and the other one is, I actually forgot what it's called, the other one, but there are two chemicals, and these two chemicals, they create a reaction in your liver. And that's, so you are producing all these chemicals that are quite in big quantities, they're quite harmful in your body. So if you're constantly producing these chemicals, it's going to affect different parts of your body. So then, therefore, it's more likely that you might have physical issues, illnesses later on in life because of that.
In your words, what is...
Sorry, I just remembered, the other chemical is cortisol. So adrenaline and cortisol.
So in your mind, what is mindfulness? And is there a difference with meditation, to meditation?
So mindfulness is a tool that, meditation is a tool that you can use in mindfulness. So meditation is a mindful tool. It's not really the same. You can do mindful meditation. You can do different meditation. Could be guided meditation or could be mindful meditation. If it's a guided meditation, you are focusing in whatever the person is guiding you to focus on. You are imagining things, you might be visualizing things, being in a beach, being in a forest, whatever it is that makes you feel calm. If you're doing mindful meditation, then it's got more to do with going back into within yourself, being aware of your sensations, being aware of your feelings and your emotions. So my meditation is a mindfulness tool. Does it make sense?
Yes.
And then mindfulness, for you to be mindful, you don't need to meditate. You can actually just do your day, go about your daily life, as probably go about your daily life, washing the dishes, walk your dog, drinking a cup of tea. that could be mindful. Just being mindfulness is really about being in the present moment, being aware of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, or what the sensations in your body is. It could be all the three at the same time, or it could be just a specific one. So, and it also could be as well, not only just being aware of whatever goes on within you, but it could be also with outside. You can be mindful, I am here, and actually really looking into the things as if it's the first time you're really looking into the things and really observing what's happening around you, and being aware of the sounds, being aware of the colors and the objects, and just really being present with these things and really observing them.
Is this your moment-to-moment experience?
Yes, well, moment to moment, it's quite hard to be moment to moment sometimes. And I think it's the same thing when people think that when you are mindful, you are not thinking. That's, for me, my opinion, my modest opinion, that's impossible. It's impossible for you to actually stop your thoughts. Your brain is always constantly, there is no way you can stop your thoughts. You can stop maybe for 1 second, no more than that. But it's actually being aware of your thoughts and you're observing them, and they carry on, they go, they do their own thing, and you're observing them, seeing them coming in, coming out. Moment by moment, yes, I haven't really thought about that, but I would say yes, actually, yes, moment by moment. There may be some moments that it might escape you and you might not really be mindful. But, I think as long as at least you're trying, you still be mindful, isn't it? You're still trying, you're still doing something, and you're still actively trying to be mindful, if it makes sense.
So is this awareness of the thoughts, is this consciousness, God consciousness, is this the ultimate awareness, that which is looking at thoughts?
That's a good example. Would you ask me the question again? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you are looking at your thoughts, you're aware of your feelings, you're aware of the thinker, so what is that awareness which is aware of the body, the thoughts, feelings, which is aware of hearing, seeing, tasting, touching?
Yes. Yes, and I think that's a very good point. And I think that's why mindfulness and meditation often leads to spiritual experiences, isn't it? That realization that you are not really the body, because, like you're saying, you are aware of these things that are happening to you, and you're realizing that you're actually not even your mind. You're not your heart, because you can observe your heart, you can feel your heart, you know that. So you're not the physical aspect. Again, like you said, awareness. You become aware you are boundless. This body is not, you are, it's not your boundaries, you're boundless. So that's why it does lead to that spiritual experiencing, and feeling that you kind of connected with everything at the same time. You're not just this container, you're more than that.
Have you had these experiences yourself?
I did, sometimes quite intensively. Just trying to think, I can't really point out when was the first time I had that kind of experience. But yes, I did. And often it really lasts for a really brief moment in time. And it feels like when you get there and then you have that thought, I want to stay this way forever. And then it goes. And then it's just that moment just goes. It's like, I guess it's that kind of as wanting to grasp that and to, grab it, to hold onto it. And then it just goes, because I don't think it's something that is to be grabbed and to be in there all the time as well. Because I think if if that was the goal, then we probably would not be here in the first place. And I think as well, actually going in a different direction, I think as well in some of the spiritual communities, I think for me, from my vision, I don't say that I know everything and that I've got the answers for everything, but from my own perception, from my own understanding, within spiritual community, I think sometimes that's the mistake as well, thinking that you have to be in that state all the time, and feeling that's the path, that's the journey, that's the goal, to be in that state. I don't believe that, and that's because for me that's very similar to any other religion. Then you kind of constantly striving for being perfect, striving to be godlike, striving to be divine, to be pure, striving to be what you call when you do something bad. They have got their specific expression in Catholic Church, seen to be sinful. So, and that can happen as well within the spiritual community, where you're constantly striving to be this divine, this loving kindness person that is always happy, and that only has love and kindness within their heart, doesn't do anything wrong, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't eat this and doesn't eat that. And, and that also for me is another trap. Because then you actually suppressing other aspects of yourself that will always be there no matter what. And that's what being human is. And we also have to accept our human side. We have to accept not only our spiritual side, but also our own limitations as a human beings. And there is a reason for us to be on this planet, in this body. And a lot of people sometimes use meditation as a way escaping, as escapism, and that can be a problem as well. So I just went off the tangent, but just thought that.
So people use meditation as an escape. What do you mean by that?
Well, I could even see that in myself as well. When I start doing meditation, when I start joining in mindfulness groups, you kind of, I did go through a phase without realizing it, because it was all new to me and I was still discovering it. And going through a phase where, again, I start to suppress the shadows aspect of myself and thinking, oh, I am only this person that is meditating, and I am divine because God is within me, I'm divine. So, and I want to be in that continuous state of bliss. I don't want anything else. I don't want negativity in my life. I don't want to look into negative things, just want to be positive all the time, rainbows and unicorns all the time. So obviously that creates a sort of a breakdown within you, because things are not really, that's not really the reality, is it? And then as you do that, then it also creates sort of a disconnection with other people as well, because you're not being true, you're not being real to yourself, you're not being true to yourself, and people can sense that. And being in that constant state of escapism, again, pretending that everything is perfect. I'm just going to be positive from now on, and I'm just going to see rainbows and unicorns and not pay attention to whatever is going on to me that is negative. And if you've got something negative to say, I don't want to hear it. So that's kind of escapism as well, isn't it?
Did you personally get caught up in that trap?
I did, yes, I did. For a short period of time, thankfully, I did. And then, I start realizing, because I'm a quite expressive person as well. So first I realized on other people that was, within the same group that I was going to, we had kind of a group of friends that we were all doing meditation and participating in these kind of activities. And first I start realizing in them, because it's always like that, isn't it? You never seen yourself first, you always see others first. So I start realizing in them, they are doing this, why? And then I realized, oh my God, I'm actually also in a certain way, also doing it myself. Sometimes you might do things in a different way, but the reason and the result is the same, and you don't even realize it. So yes, I did realize that as well.
Why do you think that happens then? You would think that spiritual communities will be a place where you could be totally honest and freely express who you are. So why is it the case that it's felt that sometimes we need to suppress or not look at other parts when it seems that spirituality is deeply connected with honesty?
Yes, that's a good point, and I think that it stems from our need to be accepted, isn't it? Our need to be accepted, and we want to be seen as a good people. We want to be seen as someone that uh, has got, especially in that community, that someone that has got loads of wisdom, someone that is connected with our higher self, that someone that is spiritual. We want to be, mainly we want to be accepted, and we want to be seen as good people. And I think that's the main reason that happens, really.
You mentioned early on in your bio about the dark night of the soul. Is that an awakening experience? What exactly is that?
Yes, Dark Night of the Soul. I think that was probably, I'm just trying to remember what I've written, but it's probably to do when I kind of changed career, wasn't it? So, yes, I was kind of just realizing, it was the breakdown of the relationship, which was really difficult, going through all the trying to understand what happened in the past, why I'm acting in specific, this toxic ways, why I'm doing that, and solving that within me. As I did that, becoming more spiritual, doing more spiritual activities, joining a meditation group. And as I joined the meditation group, it was actually Sangha in London, which I used to go every week. So they are the meditation in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, which I found really helpful. And but as I start going to that group on a weekly basis and leaving that sort of Buddhist teachings and philosophy and start applying it in my life, not because they say that as a rule, but they talk about it. You go to the sessions and you talk about, and they have the precepts which are that are seen as sort of guidelines for you to live your life, and you can either do it or not. It's not like in a religious way. I think that's why I kind of like it, because it was not imposed on you. It was more like, if it makes sense to you, if it resonates with you, then you might want to follow these things. And it did make sense with me. It did resonate with me. So quite a lot of things I was following, and also was learning, kind of having a different perspective of uh, who I am, who people are, and our place in the world, and also becoming more aware of sustainability and ecology. And as I become more aware of that, um, it kind of changed my perception of the world and my path on this heart, and what I actually who I am, what I actually like to do. Because before I was a fashion designer when I start going to these groups, and I thought all my life, that was my persona. I am the fashion designer, I am the creative person, and that's what I want to do in my life. And that was for me kind of the pillar in my life, if it makes sense. There was a pillar, that's something I want to do, I want to be, and this is what I'm striving for. And everything, most of the things I was doing in life, moving to UK, studying, looking for work to do, was all because I wanted to be a fashion designer. So, and that time I was a fashion designer, I was working in fashion, and I was not happy. And but I kept on fighting, trying to not to listen to what my inner self is telling me, because I don't want to listen, because for me it meant going through a lot of trouble, and it would mean that all my life up to that point had been kind of a waste of time. Me coming to UK, studying here, and doing my course here, and then going on to work in fashion. I was 32 at the time. What am I going to do? So I don't want to listen to that. Funny enough, with that family member that really pushes my buttons, We had a conversation, and that person told me, oh, maybe I think fashion is not really for you. You're not for that. You're not but that, I don't remember exactly what he said, but that person said, oh, you're not really a fashion person. It's not really for you. Do you think you done the right, do you think you done the right course for you? I don't think so. And at the time, I was so upset and so hurt. I was like, I can't believe you're saying that. That's not true. That's just, how dare you saying those things? But again, a seed it was planted and it stayed there in my mind. And then I kind of went back time and time again, revising that. Is there any true in that? Why is he saying that? And then, it took me I think maybe 3-4 years to actually do the total transition and just be like, I'm over with this, I'm done with it. And I want to change, I want to do something else. It's not for me. So so that was the dark night of the soul, kind of realizing that, I don't know, kind of losing myself in a way, isn't it? You lose your persona. That's who I thought I was. And I think that's one of the main issues as well these days, is that we associate ourselves with the profession that we are, what we do. And that's our persona. And everything else, what we do in life, it kind of revolves around it, around our profession most of the times, and who we are. That defines us in a way, who we are as a person. So me not having that anymore, that defined me, I kind of felt lost. I don't know what to do. Nothing else makes sense. Nothing makes sense in my life anymore. I don't even know what I'm going to do afterwards. I don't have a passion anymore. For me, I was just living day by day without a purpose. That was, in my idea, that was it. I don't have a purpose to be here anymore. I don't even know who I'm actually. I have to reinvent myself as a person. I don't know anymore. Or how am I presenting myself to the world? Because I don't know who I am. So that was kind of a dark night of the soul, really.
Do you think that we all have purpose and we all have a calling?
I do believe, but I also believe that a lot of people, they are not sure exactly what their calling is. And even for you to fulfill your calling, often you don't even need to be sure that your calling is. And I think it's really important that people know that whether they have a purpose, a specific purpose or not in life, their life is really valuable. And for them just being, you don't actually need to, that's our mind that tells us, and society that tells us that we need to have a specific purpose, and we need to be always on the go, be always doing something and acting on something. We don't actually need to. Just existing is purpose enough. So just being. There is a reason why each single one of us is here on this planet, and there is a purpose as well. And sometimes we might go through our life and not actually knowing what our purpose was. And sometimes it could be that your purpose was just to have a conversation, a 5 minutes conversation with a specific person that you will never going to be aware of, but that somehow you change that person's life, and you might never know it. And maybe that was your whole purpose. You never know. So I think people don't need to be too attached to what their purpose is. And I also believe that the purpose might change all the time. What is your purpose now? It might not be the one in previous time, the same one in previous time. And maybe the purpose you had, for example, in my case, I thought my purpose was to be a fashion designer. It wasn't, from my understanding now, but I can see that journey for me to get to be a fashion designer, that I went through so many things, and I traveled, I met different people, expanded my horizons, and that helped me grow and perhaps helped me to be where I am now. So one thing led to another. So people can't be too attached to whatever it is that they think their purpose is, if it makes sense.
So where are you right now in these times of COVID and major changes? How are you living your life at the moment?
So I have to be honest. So we are now on the third lockdown in UK. The first two weren't too difficult for me, but now I have to say it's becoming really hard, and that's because it's winter as well. I think before it was during the springtime and then summertime as well for a short period of time. It was easier, but now because it's winter and you're locked down inside your home most of the day and it's dark, has become really difficult. Plus, I work for a mental health institution, so I have to support people that are going through a lot of mental health issues. So pretty much I'm listening to them most of the day, throughout the day, and I'm providing support, and I'm also giving some form of relief to their issues or to their thought patterns, and trying to install in them some motivation and some encouraging them and some hope, when sometimes myself I'm lacking on those as well. I have to say there are days I'm lacking on those. So it's hard, it's really hard. And right now, what helps me is to have a certain routine actually that helped me to exercise as much as I can, to go out, exercise, try and definitely not watching the news, definitely not even listening to the radio, because these days I'm listening to the radio every 10 minutes. It comes up something about, social distancing, use your mask, do this and do that. I mean, I had enough. I know what I need to do to keep myself safe. I'm not a child. I don't need to be repeated 1,000 times what to do. And also, I don't want it to be thinking all the time that there is a threat going on, because I think that's counterproductive, really. Because what is making is a lot of people, again, feeling that they are in a fight or flight situation every day, that we are at war with this virus. And for me, that's super unhealthy and it's counterproductive. And also, we had a lot of referrals this year, much more than we normally have in previous years. We had at least 70% more of referrals. So a lot of people suffering mental health issues is obviously affecting a lot of people mental health. And I can see myself as well when I'm actually paying attention to the news. It does affect my mental health. It drags me down. And I don't want to be down, because I know that's going to lower my immune system. So I try to keep myself as positive as possible. And again, it's not been living in a denial. It's not that. I know what's going on. And, I should take my precautions. Obviously, I'm not going to go around and egg old people, vulnerable people. I try and take my precautions, but I don't need to be in that constant fear state. I don't need to, and I don't want that in my life. So I just carry on living my life and being healthy and keeping my mind healthy as the best as I can. Reading positive things as well help me. I try to read something positive every day. And meditation, mindfulness as well, to keep me grounded. And living day by day, pretty much. Nowadays, yeah.
Well, I think we leave it there for today, Luz.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say thank you very much for coming on and having this conversation. And there's a lot that I didn't get to that I would really love to speak to you about. So
Okay.
I would love to speak to you again.
Oh, that would be lovely.
That would
It
be
was
great.
really lovely, Ram. Thank you so much for your amazing questions as well. And it was really lovely to see you again as well. It's been few years that we haven't seen each other really. So even though it's virtually, but it was really, really lovely.
Thank you very much. Well, this
Thanks.
has been Raan Oosha's conversations on the spiritual journey today with Luz Castro. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Raan.
Ciao.